When you think of heaven, what do you truly see? For most of us, our mental image is a collage of inherited symbols, a beautiful but profoundly vague tapestry woven from centuries of poetry, art, and simplified sermons. We see clouds, perhaps, pearly gates, a brilliant, undefined light. We imagine a singular, ethereal place, a final destination where the story ends in a state of peaceful, static bliss. This is the postcard version of eternity, the one that is safe, comforting, and asks very little of our imagination. But what if this postcard is a deliberate work of fiction? What if it is a beautiful travel brochure designed to conceal a far more complex, more structured, and more terrifyingly grand reality? What if heaven is not a single destination at all, but a cosmic superstate, a multi-dimensional empire comprised of 10 distinct realms, each with its own laws of physics, its own celestial inhabitants, and its own closely guarded secrets? And what if a detailed eyewitness map of this entire celestial geography once existed, a map transcribed by a human hand and was then deliberately suppressed? This leads us to the most unsettling question of all. If such a map, such a profound revelation of the universe's structure existed, why would it be hidden? We can understand why men would censor a politically inconvenient text. But why would God himself seem to conceal the very blueprint of his own dwelling place? The forbidden history of Enoch's journey through the heavens is not just a story about what lies beyond death. It is an investigation into a cosmic cover-up, a search for a truth so staggering that the gatekeepers of both heaven and earth may have conspired to keep it a secret. To begin this investigation, we must turn to a man who holds a unique and mysterious place in the biblical record. His name is Enoch, the seventh from Adam. The book of Genesis gives us only a brief yet tantalizing summary of his life. He walked with God, and then he was no more, because God took him. He is one of only 2 individuals in Scripture to have bypassed death, to have been taken directly from the earthly realm into the heavenly one. This fact alone sets him apart. He is not just a patriarch. He is an astronaut, humanity's first explorer of the cosmic realms. While the canonical Bible is silent on the details of what happened after God took him, another ancient and revered text claims to be his personal logbook from that journey. This is the Second Book of Enoch, also known as the Book of the Secrets of Enoch. For centuries, this text was lost to the Western world, preserved only in the Slavonic language within the Orthodox traditions of Eastern Europe. Its rediscovery and translation have provided us with a stunning first-person account of what lies beyond the veil. This is not a vague, allegorical tale. It is a detailed travelogue. The story begins with Enoch asleep in his bed when he is suddenly visited by 2 celestial beings of immense size and terrifying brightness. Their faces shone like the sun, their eyes burned like lamps, and their wings outshone gold. They called him by name and gave him an unprecedented command from the eternal God. "Today you shall ascend with us into heaven." They instructed him to inform his family that he would be gone for a time, a journey from which no one could know if he would return. And then, in a moment that shatters our understanding of the physical world, they lifted him from his home, placed him upon their wings, and carried him upward through the clouds. Enoch was not having a dream or a vision in the traditional sense. He was beginning a physical journey, a guided tour of the universe's hidden architecture, a journey that would change our understanding of heaven from a simple destination into a complex and populated empire. Enoch's journey begins not in an ethereal realm of pure spirit, but in a dimension that is shockingly physical and administrative. The first heaven, as he describes it, is not a place of worship. It is a celestial control center, the grand cosmic engine room that governs the physical laws of our world. As his angelic guides set him down upon its heights, the first thing he beholds is not a throne, but an immense sea, larger than any earthly ocean, suspended in the sky above the firmament. This is the great celestial reservoir, the upper waters that were separated from the lower waters in the first chapter of Genesis. From there, his tour continues, revealing a universe that is not a random, self-sustaining system, but one that is meticulously and actively managed. He is shown the great storehouses of the snow and the ice, vast crystalline chambers where the treasures of winter are kept under the guard of watchful angels. He sees the storehouses of the clouds and the dew, from which moisture is dispensed to the earth according to a divine and precise schedule. The most stunning revelation of this first heaven, however, is the revelation of its personnel. This is not an empty, automated machine. It is a bustling center of operations, staffed by legions of celestial beings. Enoch is brought before the elders and rulers of the stellar orders. He sees 200 angels whose sole task is to govern the movements of the stars, ensuring that every constellation keeps to its appointed course. He is shown the angelic treasurers of the snow, the guardians of the frost, the spirits who guide the clouds. The immediate and powerful implication is that the universe is not running on autopilot. Every raindrop, every snowflake, every star that traces its path across our night sky is under the direct and constant supervision of an intelligent, assigned being. The laws of physics are not just abstract principles, they are administrative policies carried out by a vast and unseen celestial bureaucracy. This is not the heaven of the philosophers, a realm of abstract perfection. This is the heaven of the engineers, a place of profound and tangible order, a place of work, of governance, and of the immense silent machinery that keeps our own world alive. Just as Enoch begins to acclimate to the staggering mechanical order of the first heaven, his journey takes a sudden and terrifying turn. His angelic guides lift him higher, and the brilliant administrative light of the first heaven fades, replaced by a darkness more profound and more chilling than any earthly night. He has entered the second heaven, and it is here that the simple, comfortable postcard image of heaven is shattered forever. For the second heaven is not a place of glory, it is a prison. Suspended in this impenetrable gloom, Enoch beholds a sight of profound and eternal sorrow. He sees a host of angelic beings, chained and awaiting judgment. These are not grotesque demons as we might imagine them. They still bear the form of their celestial origin, but their faces are withered with grief. Their mouths are sealed in a perpetual, mournful silence, and their eyes are filled with an agony that transcends time. The air is thick with their silent weeping, a ceaseless, hopeless lament that chills Enoch to his very soul. He turns to his guides, his own voice trembling, and asks who these prisoners are and what crime they could have possibly committed to deserve such a fate. The answer they give is the first direct confirmation of the forbidden history that the later gatekeepers would try so desperately to erase. These, the angels explain, are the apostates of the Lord, who did not obey God's commands, but took counsel with their own will and turned away with their prince. They are the Watchers, the very same angels from the First Book of Enoch who abandoned their heavenly station, descended to earth, took human wives, and unleashed a tide of corruption and violence upon the world. This revelation is a theological earthquake. It proves that heaven is not a monolithic, perfectly harmonious realm. It is a place that has known mutiny, treason, and civil war. It is a place where justice is not just a concept, but an active, ongoing process with prisons, judgments, and sentences. One of the prisoners, in a moment of desperate hope, sees the human visitor and cries out, "Man of God, pray for us to the Lord." But Enoch, overwhelmed and aware of his own mortal status, can only lower his gaze and reply, "Who am I, a mortal man, to pray for angels?" The simple, unified concept of heaven has been irrevocably broken. It is not just a place of reward, it is also a place of consequence. From the chilling, judicial darkness of the celestial prison, Enoch's journey ascends into a realm of breathtaking and overwhelming beauty, a place that is the very antithesis of the sorrow he has just witnessed. As he crosses the invisible threshold into the third heaven, the oppressive gloom vanishes instantly, replaced by a golden, life-giving radiance that seems to hum with a gentle, joyful music. The air itself is different here. It is not just a medium to be breathed, it is a substance to be experienced, saturated with a palpable sense of peace and a fragrance of unimaginable sweetness. It is here, in this dimension of perfect and incorruptible life, that Enoch is shown the true location of one of the most sought-after and mythologized places in all of sacred history, the Garden of Eden. This is not the earthly Eden from which Adam and Eve were exiled, a place now guarded by a flaming sword. This is its celestial counterpart, the divine archetype, the heavenly original of which the earthly garden was merely a shadow and a copy. This is paradise itself, prepared and preserved as an eternal inheritance for the righteous souls who have passed from the world below. Enoch describes a landscape that defies all earthly comparison, a place where creation exists in its ultimate unfallen state. He walks through endless groves of sweet flowering trees, their forms more vibrant, their colors more vivid than anything he has ever seen. Their branches are heavy with fragrant, otherworldly fruits, and their leaves rustle with a sound like gentle music. At the very center of this garden, serving as the focal point of the entire realm, stands the Tree of Life. Enoch struggles to find the words to describe it, grasping for earthly metaphors that he knows are inadequate. Its base shines like gold, its trunk is the color of vermilion and glows like fire, and its leaves are like the most beautiful cypress. It is not just a tree, it is a living fountain of divine energy, a conduit for the very life of God that sustains the entire realm. From beneath the roots of this holy tree, 4 rivers spring forth, not with water, but with the very essence of divine blessing. One flows with honey, another with milk, a third with oil, and a fourth with wine. These rivers circle the garden in a gentle, unending stream before spilling down as a perpetual sign of blessing into the lower, earthly Eden from which Adam was cast out. This paradise is not an empty park. It is a vibrant, inhabited sanctuary tended by a host of 300 brilliant and glorious angels. Their sole task is to guard the garden from any impurity and to sing unending, gentle hymns of praise before the Lord. Their song is so pure, so perfectly harmonious, that Enoch says it is impossible for any mortal ear to fully comprehend its beauty, and his angelic guides explain to him the purpose of this magnificent place. This, they say, is prepared as an eternal inheritance for those who live a righteous life on earth, for those who endure injustice without bitterness, who judge with true justice, who feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and care for the orphan. It is the ultimate destination that every righteous soul longs for, the restored home, the place of perfect, unending communion, existing not as a vague hope, but as a real, tangible, and breathtakingly beautiful place in the third heaven. Just as Enoch is completely overwhelmed by the breathtaking beauty and profound peace of paradise, his angelic guides do something shocking. They turn him toward the northern region of this same heavenly dimension. And in an instant, the entire atmosphere changes. The warm, golden radiance of the garden vanishes, replaced by a biting, bone-deep chill. The gentle, fragrant air becomes thick and foul, and the joyful music of the angelic choir is swallowed by a dreadful, echoing silence. It is here, in a desolate corner of the very same heaven that holds paradise, that Enoch is shown the location of hell. He describes a place of terrifying and eternal contradictions. It is a realm shrouded in a cruel and impenetrable darkness. Yet this darkness is illuminated from within by a murky, merciless fire that gives off no warmth, only the light of judgment. Rivers of this same dark fire twist and hiss through the gloom, their banks lined not with green grass, but with sharp, jagged ice and fields of biting frost. There is no rest here, no balance, only the simultaneous and unending torment of burning and freezing. Enoch speaks of the terrible angels who patrol this place, their forms fearsome, their weapons glowing with a cold, pitiless wrath. Their sole task is to inflict punishments, to carry out the sentences for the wicked. This revelation is, in some ways, even more shocking than the discovery of the angel prison in the second heaven. Mainstream theology for centuries has separated these two realities, placing paradise in a distant, ethereal heaven and hell in a fiery pit deep beneath the earth. But Enoch's eyewitness account presents a far more intimate and unsettling cosmology. It reveals that paradise and the place of torment are not separate, distant realities. They are neighboring regions within the same celestial dimension. This place, his guides explain, with a solemnity that chills him, has been prepared for those who dishonor God on earth. They proceed to list the crimes that lead to this inheritance: sorcery, witchcraft, theft, lying, and the worship of lifeless, man-made idols. But they also include sins of omission, those who see the hungry and do not feed them, who see the naked and do not clothe them, who see the afflicted and turn away. For all of these, this place of fire and ice is their eternal inheritance. The implication is staggering. The righteous in paradise and the wicked in torment are, in a cosmic sense, neighbors. The only thing that separates them is not a vast, impassable gulf of space, but the infinite gulf of a single lifetime's worth of choices. Leaving behind the profound and unsettling duality of the third heaven, Enoch's ascent continues, bringing him into a realm of pure, mathematical, and astronomical wonder. As he enters the fourth heaven, he is no longer a witness to the consequences of moral choices, but to the very mechanics of cosmic order. He is brought into the grand control room of the universe, the place where the celestial clockwork that governs all of time and seasons is managed and maintained. It is here that we find a direct visual confirmation of the divine 364-day calendar. The very prophetic engine whose loss we have previously investigated. Enoch describes a scene of breathtaking scale and precision. He sees the great circles of the heavens, the celestial tracks upon which the sun and the moon make their daily and yearly journeys. The sun, he says, is a great crown of fire, attended by legions of angels and two mythical creatures, the phoenixes and the chalkidri, whose songs at sunrise awaken the birds of the earth. He watches as the sun moves through a series of 6 great gates in the east, travels across its appointed path, and sets through 6 corresponding gates in the west. This is not a random journey. It is a perfectly calibrated circuit. He is then shown the mechanics of the moon, which follows a similar path through its own set of 12 gates, its light waxing and waning according to a divinely authored schedule. And it is here that the text provides critical data. It describes a solar year of 364 days and a lunar year that is shorter, creating a temporal deficit that must be accounted for over long cycles. This is a monumental piece of evidence. The Book of Enoch does not just mention the 364-day calendar, it shows its physical and administrative reality. The fourth heaven is the engine room of this sacred time. The angels that Enoch sees here are not singing hymns. They are technicians, astronomers, and chronographers. They are the celestial engineers who ensure that the prophetic clock of God never drifts, that the appointed times remain fixed, and that the entire universe runs according to its original, perfect blueprint. This vision confirms that the sacred calendar is not a theological theory or a later invention. It is a cosmological fact, a piece of the very machinery that makes the universe work. And Enoch was the first human to be given a look under the hood. The journey upward continues, but as Enoch enters the fifth heaven, the atmosphere of mechanical precision and cosmic order gives way to a profound and heavy silence. The celestial landscape here is a vast and empty plain, punctuated by groups of silent, motionless figures. These are not the diligent, working angels of the lower heavens. These are beings of immense stature, larger than the greatest giants of the earth, yet their faces are withered and hollowed out by an ancient and unending grief. Their mouths, which should have been thundering with songs of praise, are sealed in a perpetual, mournful quiet. There is no service here, no worship, only the suffocating stillness of regret. Enoch, his own heart aching at the sight, asks his guides who these beings are and why they stand in such sorrowful silence. And the answer provides another critical link in the chain of our forbidden history, connecting the cosmology of this text with the primordial rebellion described in the first book of Enoch. These, his guides reply, are the Grigori. This is a specific class of angels, a rank within the order of the Watchers. They are the brothers of the angels he saw imprisoned in the darkness of the second heaven, the ones who had descended to earth, taken human wives, and fathered the monstrous Nephilim. But while their brethren were chained in the abyss for their direct transgression, this group of Grigori, who had followed their prince Satanael in rejecting the Lord, were given a different sentence. They were not cast into darkness, but were stationed here in this barren heaven, stripped of their glory, their purpose, and their voices. They are not in a prison of chains, but in a prison of silent, eternal regret, a living monument to the consequences of a failed mutiny. Moved by a strange pity, Enoch speaks to them. He tells them he has seen their imprisoned brothers and has heard their desperate pleas. He asks them, "Why do you wait in silence? Why do you not serve before the Lord's face and begin a liturgy of praise so that you do not anger your Lord to the end?" He is offering them a path back, a way to break their silent protest and begin the long, slow work of repentance. And for the first time in ages, the silence is broken. The Grigori, stirred by the words of this mortal man, turn to one another, and as 4 great trumpets sound across the desolate plain, they lift their voices in unison. It is not a song of joy, but a mournful, sorrowful chant that rises like smoke before the throne of God. It is the first note of worship to be heard in this silent heaven since the dawn of their fall. The mournful chant of the Grigori still echoing in his spirit, Enoch is lifted once more, ascending into a realm of brilliant, purposeful activity. The 6th heaven is not a place of sorrow or mechanical precision. It is the grand, celestial, administrative center of the universe, the divine archives where the life of every human soul is meticulously recorded and managed. As he enters, Enoch is surrounded by 7 bands of archangels, their radiance brighter than the sun, their faces shining with a serene and focused intelligence. There is no idleness here, no wasted motion. These are the celestial bureaucrats, the divine record keepers, the managers of the human story. Enoch watches as they oversee and regulate all of the natural order of the world below. They command the seasons, they guide the years, and they issue instructions to the angels in the lower heavens to ensure that the good order of creation is maintained. When evil begins to stir on earth, it is these archangels who dispatch the forces of order to ensure that balance is not lost. But their most profound and personal task is the one that directly concerns humanity. Enoch is shown the books of heaven, vast and unending scrolls upon which these archangels write down the names, the deeds, the lives, and the very thoughts of every human soul. Every breath you take, every kindness you show, every secret cruelty you commit, every idle word you speak, all of it, Enoch sees, is being transcribed in real time by these celestial scribes. They are the keepers of the permanent record, the archivists of every human life. In the midst of this realm of breathtaking accountability, Enoch sees other magnificent beings. 6 phoenixes, 6 cherubim, and 6 six-winged ones, constantly circling and singing before the footstool of the Almighty. Their music is woven with harmonies not of this earth, a joyful and unceasing celebration of the King of Heaven. It is a place of both perfect order and perfect worship, a realm where administration and adoration are one and the same. To stand in this heaven is to be confronted with a humbling and terrifying truth. Your life is not a private affair. It is an open book, being read and recorded in the archives of heaven. And one day, that book will be opened as testimony in the final judgment. The journey now takes its most dramatic and awe-inspiring turn. As Enoch is lifted from the divine archives of the 6th heaven, he crosses a threshold into a realm where the very fabric of reality seems to be made of pure, unadulterated glory. He has entered the 7th heaven, the antechamber to the throne of God itself. The light here is no longer just bright. It is a living, intelligent flame that seems to pierce into the very marrow of his soul, reading his thoughts and weighing his spirit. This realm is not a place of quiet administration. It is a celestial war room, a divine court filled with the highest and most powerful beings in all of creation. Enoch is surrounded by fiery troops of great archangels organized in magnificent, terrifying ranks, each being clothed in a brilliance that would blind a mortal eye. He sees the incorporeal forces of the universe made manifest, the dominions, the principalities, the powers, the thrones, and the authorities, the very spiritual hierarchies that the Apostle Paul would later speak of. He sees the cherubim, radiant and covered with countless eyes, their gaze seeming to encompass all of past, present, and future. He sees the seraphim, the six-winged ones, burning with an unquenchable holiness as they circle in unending devotion, their voices weaving the eternal hymn, Holy, 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 into the very atmosphere of the dimension. And then, from a great distance, he sees it, the throne of the Almighty. It is not a throne of gold or of earthly construction. It blazes with a light that has no source, a self-generating brilliance that seems to be the origin point of all light in the universe. And seated upon it, though Enoch can only perceive a form of unbearable glory, is the Lord of Spirits himself. The sight is too much for a mortal frame to bear. Enoch's knees buckle, his strength leaves him, and he falls to the ground, his face pressed against the floor of heaven, convinced that his end has come. "Woe is me," he whispers to himself. "What has befallen me?" He has seen what no man is meant to see and live. He has approached the very center of all power, all reality, all holiness. And now his angelic guides will lead him one step closer into the very presence of the one who sits upon the throne. As Enoch lies prostrate on the floor of the seventh heaven, overwhelmed by the distant glory of the throne, his journey is not yet complete. The cosmology he is being shown is grander and more complex than even this magnificent scene suggests. His angelic guides lift him to his feet, their voices steadying his trembling spirit, and prepare him for the final ascent. They reveal to him that beyond this great celestial court, there are still higher realms, dimensions of reality that are even closer to the essential nature of God. The text of Second Enoch describes a swift and breathtaking passage through these higher heavens. The eighth heaven, he is told, is the place from which the seasons of the year are controlled, the changer of the seasons, a realm that governs the great climatic cycles of the earth below. It is here that the 12 signs of the zodiac, the celestial constellations, have their stations, their movements guided by the divine will to bring about winter and summer, drought and rain in their appointed times. From there, he is lifted higher still into the ninth heaven. This, his guides explain, is the celestial home of the 12 signs of the zodiac themselves. Here, Enoch sees not just the patterns of the stars, but the very spiritual principles and angelic authorities that are associated with each constellation. It is a realm of pure archetypal order, the source from which the destinies of the lower worlds are measured out. It is a place beyond the physical mechanics of the cosmos, a dimension of pure divine thought and intention. Each of these brief glimpses is a powerful revelation, a piece of the cosmic map that expands Enoch's understanding of the universe. He is learning that reality is not a simple flat plane, but a series of ascending levels, each one more glorious, more powerful, and more intimately connected to the mind of God than the last. These higher heavens are the final layers of the divine government, the upper houses of the celestial parliament through which the will of the king is administered. And this final ascent is a preparation. It is a process of acclimating his mortal spirit, of readying him for the ultimate destination, the 10th and final heaven, the place where God Himself dwells in unapproachable light. Having passed through the ascending glories of the lower heavens, Enoch now arrives at the final destination, the absolute zenith of all creation. He is lifted across the final veil and enters the 10th heaven, a realm that has a name of its own, Aravoth. The moment he enters, all previous definitions of light and glory become obsolete. The light here is not like the sun, nor the stars, nor the fiery brilliance of the seraphim. It is the light from which all other light is born. It is the raw, uncreated, and living effulgence that pours directly from the very face of God. Enoch describes a countenance that is both terrifying and beautiful, a sight that burns like heated iron pulled from a celestial forge, yet which radiates an infinite and fatherly kindness. It is a face that is both fire and mercy, both judgment and grace. Overwhelmed by this ultimate revelation, Enoch falls prone once more, his human consciousness dissolving in the face of a glory that no mortal tongue can describe and no created mind can fully contain. He has reached the end of all things, the very center of reality. And then a voice comes. It is not a sound that travels through the air. It is a communication that resonates in the very core of Enoch's being, a voice that shakes the foundations of the 10 heavens, yet carries the intimacy of a whisper. "Have courage, Enoch," the voice of God says. "Do not fear. Arise and stand before my face into eternity." At this command, the great archangel Michael is dispatched. He lifts Enoch from the ground as if he were weightless, and then a miraculous and permanent transformation begins. Enoch is stripped of his earthly garments, the symbols of his mortality and his fear. He is anointed with a sweet, shining ointment, and its light sinks into his very being, transforming his skin, his bones, his very essence, until he himself begins to shine like one of the glorious ones. He is then clothed in a new robe, a garment woven not of fabric, but of the very light and glory of God. In this moment, the weight of his mortality, his fear, and his separation from God are lifted forever. He is no longer just Enoch, son of Jared, the man from earth. He has been fully and eternally initiated into the heavenly court, a servant of the Most High, ready to stand and minister in the presence of the King. And so we must now confront the central question of our investigation. After witnessing this staggering, detailed, and cosmologically rich journey, we must ask, why was this book hidden? Why would a revelation this profound, this detailed, this awe-inspiring be deliberately excluded from the sacred canon that would go on to shape Western civilization? The first and most fundamental reason is that the universe of Enoch was simply too complex. The imperial Christianity that was being forged in the 4th century at the Council of Nicaea and beyond required a simple, clean, and easily marketable theology. For a religion to become the unifying glue of a vast and diverse empire, its core concepts needed to be straightforward and accessible. The gatekeepers of this new orthodoxy were in the business of building a faith that could be summarized in a creed, taught in a catechism, and defended with philosophical logic. They needed a simple heaven and a simple hell. They needed a singular, easily defined Godhead. They needed a clear and linear path to salvation. But the Book of Enoch obliterates this simplicity. It does not present a neat, tidy cosmos. It presents a sprawling, multi-layered, and at times chaotic one. The map of the 10 heavens is not a simple diagram. It is a complex, bureaucratic, and deeply mystical org chart of the divine government. It is populated with numerous named and unnamed classes of angels, each with specific and sometimes overlapping duties. It contains celestial prisons, grieving spirits, and administrative centers. It is not a universe that can be easily controlled or defined by a committee of bishops. For an institution like the burgeoning Roman Church, whose power depended on its claim to be the sole earthly administrator of divine truth, Enoch's cosmology was a direct threat. It suggested that the universe was far more intricate, far more mysterious, and far less knowable than their systematic theology would allow. It was a truth too wild to be tamed, too vast to be contained within the walls of a basilica. And so, the first act of censorship was an act of cosmological reduction. They did not just ban a book, they shrank a universe. The complexity of Enoch's cosmology was not its only threat to the new, simplified orthodoxy. Even more dangerous was the fact that the heaven it described was profoundly uncomfortable. The postcard version of heaven that has been passed down to us is a place of unmitigated bliss, of perfect harmony, a static and conflict-free paradise. It is a one-dimensional destination, a celestial retirement home where the righteous enjoy their eternal reward. But the heaven that Enoch toured is a place of shocking and unsettling realities. It is not a place that has been sanitized for our comfort. In the second heaven, he discovers a prison filled with weeping, tormented angels who are former members of God's own host. In the fifth heaven, he finds another class of fallen angels, the Grigori, who are not chained but are left to wither in a state of silent, unending grief. And in the third heaven, he learns that the very dimension that contains the breathtaking beauty of paradise also contains, in its northern region, a terrible place of fire and ice prepared for the wicked. This is a heaven that is still actively engaged in the process of judgment, of discipline, of cosmic justice. It is a realm where the consequences of rebellion are on full and sorrowful display. This is a far cry from the simple, conflict-free afterlife that the institutional church would later promote. Why was this vision so threatening? Because an uncomfortable heaven requires a more sober and vigilant faith. A heaven that contains prisons for its own rebellious angels is a heaven that takes sin and treason with the utmost seriousness. It undermines the cheap grace and easy salvation that can sometimes be preached from pulpits. It suggests that the stakes of the spiritual life are terrifyingly high, and that the consequences of failure are eternal and are administered within the very geography of the celestial realms. This was not a message that fit the triumphalist narrative of a newly empowered imperial Christianity. The gatekeepers needed a heaven that was purely aspirational, a simple reward to be offered to the faithful. They did not want a heaven that was also a living testament to the reality of divine wrath and the terrible cost of rebellion. And so, the uncomfortable details were edited out. The prisons were forgotten. The grieving giants were silenced. And the complex judicial reality of heaven was replaced by a simpler and far less challenging fairy tale. The third and most dangerous threat posed by the Book of Enoch, the one that almost certainly sealed its fate as a forbidden text, was not its complex cosmology or its uncomfortable heaven. It was the revolutionary model of spiritual authority that it presented. The entire structure of the new imperial Christianity, being built by Constantine and the Nicene Fathers, was based on a rigid, top-down hierarchy. Authority flowed from God to the emperor and the councils he convened, down to the bishops, then to the priests, and finally to the ordinary believers. In this system, access to divine truth was mediated. It was controlled, interpreted, and dispensed by the official institutional church. The individual believer was a recipient of truth, not a discoverer of it. But the story of Enoch completely shatters this model. Enoch is not a bishop, not a priest, not a member of any religious establishment. He is a layman, a patriarch from the dawn of time, a man whose sole qualification is that he walked with God. And yet, he is the one who is granted a direct, unmediated, and personal tour of the entire cosmic government. He does not receive his revelation through a council or a creed. He receives it directly from the mouth of God and his angels. This is a profoundly dangerous and empowering idea. It suggests that a direct personal encounter with the divine is possible, that an individual can receive profound spiritual revelation without the permission or the mediation of an institutional structure. If Enoch, a simple man, could be taken on a journey to the 10th heaven, then what is the ultimate purpose of the complex hierarchy of the church? If God would reveal the secrets of the universe to a single righteous individual, then the claim of the institution to be the exclusive gatekeeper of divine truth is fundamentally undermined. The story of Enoch is a testament to the power of a personal, unmediated relationship with God. It is a declaration that the Spirit of God is not bound by the walls of a basilica or the decrees of a council. For an institution whose entire authority was built on its claim to be the sole mediator between God and man, this was the ultimate threat. It was a story that could inspire individual seekers to bypass the institution and seek God for themselves. And for a system built on control, there is no greater danger than an empowered and independent believer. The book had to be suppressed, not because it was false, but because it taught a model of faith that rendered the gatekeepers obsolete. To rediscover the map of Enoch is to do more than just learn a new and fascinating cosmology. It is to fundamentally reframe our understanding of our own place in the universe. The worldview that has been passed down to us, the one born from the sanitized, simplified theology of the post-Nicene era, is a worldview that can often feel empty and random. We are taught that we live on a small planet in a vast, cold, and largely indifferent universe, a tiny stage where the human drama plays out in isolation. But the universe of Enoch is the very opposite of this. It is not an empty void, it is a vibrant, teeming, and purposeful structure. The map of the 10 heavens reveals a cosmos that is not a random collection of stars and galaxies, but an intricate, highly organized, and meticulously administered government. Every realm, every angelic order, every celestial body has a specific role and a specific function within a single, unified divine plan. This knowledge changes everything. It means that your life is not unfolding in a cosmic vacuum. You are not an insignificant speck in a meaningless void. You are a citizen living within a vast and active celestial empire. The world you inhabit is not an isolated outpost. It is a specific, designated province in a multi-dimensional kingdom. The natural laws that govern your reality are not just random principles of physics. They are the administrative policies of a divine government, actively managed by legions of celestial beings. To live with this understanding is to live with a profound and unshakable sense of purpose. It is to know that the universe is not indifferent to your existence. On the contrary, it is intimately and intricately involved in it. The angels in the sixth heaven are recording your every word. The governors of the seasons in the eighth heaven are managing the world that sustains you. The great king in the 10th heaven is not a distant philosophical concept. He is an active, engaged sovereign, presiding over a cosmic administration in which your own life plays a meaningful part. The map of Enoch does not just show us what heaven is like, it shows us that the entire universe, from the highest heaven to the smallest atom on earth, is saturated with divine intention. Once you possess the key to Enoch's cosmic map, you can return to the familiar pages of the canonical Bible and begin to see them in a new three-dimensional light. Passages that once seemed obscure, metaphorical, or simply strange are suddenly revealed to be direct and precise references to this suppressed, multi-layered cosmology. The apostles, it becomes clear, were not writing in the simplified, flattened universe of later theology. They were writing from within the rich, complex, and populated cosmos of Enoch. Consider the Apostle Paul's mysterious journey described in his second letter to the Corinthians. He speaks of being caught up to the third heaven, and then, in the next breath, of being caught up to paradise. For centuries, interpreters have debated whether these were two different events or two ways of describing the same experience. But with Enoch's map in hand, the answer is simple and clear. Paul is not being redundant, he is being geographically precise. As Enoch's tour revealed, paradise is located in the third heaven. Paul is simply describing his arrival at a specific celestial address. Think, too, of Jesus' promise to his disciples in the Gospel of John. "In my Father's house are many mansions," or, more accurately translated, many rooms, or dwelling places. This is often interpreted as a gentle poetic metaphor for the spaciousness of God's love. But in the context of Enoch's 10 heavens, it becomes a literal architectural description. The Father's house is not a single, ethereal destination. It is a vast, multi-dimensional structure with numerous different realms, different levels, and different dwelling places prepared for the righteous. Even the very structure of the Lord's Prayer is illuminated. When we pray, "Your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven," we are not just speaking of a vague spiritual ideal. We are praying for the perfect administrative order that Enoch witnessed in the celestial government, the flawless execution of the divine will by the angelic hosts, to be fully and finally implemented in our own chaotic, rebellious world. The Bible is not silent about this cosmic geography. We have simply been taught to read it with a flattened, one-dimensional map. Enoch gives us back the original, and with it a far deeper and more literal understanding of the world that the biblical authors inhabited. This restored understanding of the cosmos as a complex, multi-dimensional government does not just change the way we read the Bible, it fundamentally transforms the way we pray and worship. Our spiritual practices are no longer isolated, personal acts performed in a vacuum. They become conscious acts of participation in a vast, ongoing, and cosmic reality. Consider the act of prayer. In the simplified post-Nicene worldview, prayer is often seen as a one-to-one communication, a private conversation between a believer and a distant God. But with Enoch's map in hand, we understand that our prayers are not just being sent up into a vague, empty somewhere. They are ascending through celestial dimensions. They are passing through the realms of angelic administration. As Enoch witnessed in the sixth heaven, our words, our thoughts, our very lives are being actively recorded by the celestial scribes. This means that our prayers are not just personal petitions, they are official entries into the heavenly record, testimonies presented in the divine court. This knowledge should fill us with both a profound sense of awe and a sober sense of accountability. We are not just speaking into the void. We are addressing the throne room of a cosmic government, and our words are being filed as evidence. Worship is similarly transformed. It is no longer just a human activity, a gathering of voices in a small earthly building. It is an act of joining a pre-existing and eternal cosmic symphony. The hymns we sing on earth are a faint echo of the unending liturgies being performed at this very moment by the cherubim and seraphim in the seventh heaven. When we praise God, we are not initiating an action. We are harmonizing with a reality that has existed since before time. We are adding our small, fragile voices to a choir of billions, a chorus that fills the 10 heavens with the glory of the King. This understanding elevates our worship from a weekly duty to a profound privilege. We are not just singing songs in a church. We are participating in real time in the political and cultural life of the Kingdom of Heaven. For nearly 17 centuries, this sacred map of the cosmos was hidden. It was not lost, but deliberately concealed, locked away in the forbidden archives of a faith that had chosen simplicity over splendor, control over complexity. The gatekeepers of the new imperial orthodoxy, in their quest to build a stable and manageable religion, had made a fateful decision. They had taken the sprawling, breathtaking and terrifyingly grand universe of Enoch and folded it up, tucking it away out of sight, leaving us with a flattened, two-dimensional caricature of reality. But a map that is drawn by the hand of God cannot be permanently hidden by the hands of men. In our own time, through a series of what can only be described as prophetic and providential events, the preservation of manuscripts in the highlands of Ethiopia, the miraculous discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the map is being unrolled once again. The celestial prisons, the grieving giants, the administrative archives, the ascending glories of the 10 heavens, all of it is returning to our collective consciousness. This is not happening by accident. The re-emergence of this knowledge in our specific generation is a divine invitation. It is a summons from the God of the cosmos to his people, a call to lift our eyes from the small, familiar floor plans of our denominational houses and to gaze once more upon the full, breathtaking architecture of his universal kingdom. He is inviting us to see that the universe is not the cold, empty, and meaningless void that secularism describes, nor is it the simple, sanitized, and predictable storybook that religion often presents. It is a place of profound mystery, of staggering complexity, and of an all-encompassing divine purpose in which our own lives play a vital and recorded part. The map is no longer hidden. The choice to read it now rests with us. The greatest revelation from the Book of Enoch is not, in the end, the specific details of the 10 heavens. It is not the existence of angelic prisons, nor the mechanics of the celestial clockwork. The most profound and unspoken revelation is the simple fact that a human being was permitted to see them at all. The journey of Enoch is a testament to a truth that undermines the very foundation of any religious system built on control and exclusion. That the God of the universe is not a distant, inaccessible king, hiding behind impenetrable walls of holiness. He is a Father who, at his own appointed time, delights in revealing the secrets of his kingdom to those who seek him with a pure heart. The gatekeepers of tradition, both ancient and modern, have often sought to portray God as a being who must be approached through their specific rituals, their approved doctrines, their mediated channels of authority. But the story of Enoch is a radical declaration of spiritual independence. It proves that a direct, personal, and transformative encounter with the living God is possible. It proves that the deepest mysteries of the cosmos are not the exclusive property of a priestly class, but are available to any soul that learns to walk with God. This is the truth that the empire could not tolerate. This is the truth that every controlling religious system fears. The map of the heavens is not just a cosmological diagram, it is a promise. It is a promise that the God who invited Enoch into his throne room is the same God who, through Christ, has torn the veil and invited all of us into that same holy presence. And so the final question is not about the geography of heaven, but about the posture of your own heart. Knowing now that the universe is a far grander and more complex reality than you were ever told, and that the King of that universe invites you into a direct and personal relationship, how does this change the way you see your own place within it? Let us know in the comments below.